Corey Day repeats history, Justin Sanders stays red hot, and the High Rollers head to the Pacific Northwest for the highest paying race in series history. We discuss it all on this week's edition of the High Limit Room. I'm Chase Rodman. Welcome back to the High Limit Room, coming to you live from the Seven Feathers Casino and Resort. We'll be joined later on by Brian Walker and Tony Laporta. Before we talk big money at the Skagit Speedway this upcoming weekend, let's dive into a race recap from the Gold Cup Race of Champions and the Douglas County Dirt Track up in Roseburg, Oregon. It was a spectacular 3 nights of racing at California's Crown Jewel on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night of last week. On Thursday, it was a repeat from 2024 with Corey Day and Brad Sweet going at it for their prelim night win, and once again, Corey Day came out on top in that battle. Day started 8th on the field by virtue of being the high point earner through the heats in qualifying, and just after the halfway signal, he would close in on Brad Sweet and seize the lead on lap number 18. Sweet would do all he could to try and get back by Payday, but Payday really did everything right, and he would earn the pole position for Saturday night with a near perfect score in event points. He was quick time overall. He went 6th to 2nd in the heat race and 8th to 1st in the feature. So missed out on missed out on a perfect score by 1 position on his prelim night. Then on Friday night, it was all about Justin Sanders as he would lay claim to preliminary night number 2 after starting from the 7th position. The win was his 5th in a row at the Silver Dollar Speedway, and it was good enough to claim the Durst Dice Roll for the 3rd time this season as well. The feature was incredibly chaotic, however, with 3 different drivers leading laps throughout that race. James McFadden would be the early favorite for the win until the youngster from Arlington, Washington, Jesse Schlotfeld, came seemingly out of nowhere and would go around the outside. He had the cushion wired and took the lead away from James McFadden. Then on lap number 14, there was a restart. McFadden and Schlotfeld get together coming off of turn number 2, and it sent both drivers airborne along with Spencer Baston. Schlotfeld would be done for the night, and McFadden would maintain the race lead, but he did have a damaged race car. The nose wing was tweaked, and you can only imagine the front end had to be bent as well after that contact. On lap 21 was when Justin Sanders saw his opening, and he would snatch the lead for good and get the win. And then in the finale, that would line up Justin Sanders next to Corey Day for the $100,071 finale. And that was a 40-lap feature on Saturday for the Gold Cup. Corey Day would lead early, and it was looking like he was going to do the exact same thing we've seen him do for the last 2 years, and that is dominate the Gold Cup Race of Champions for the 3rd year in a row. But that was not the case. When Corey Eliason flipped on lap number 4, that set up a restart where Sanders caught Day off guard seemingly and took over the top spot with a turn 1 slider, and then Corey Day quickly would surrender second as well to Brad Sweet. And at that point in time, you're thinking, well, maybe this isn't the year for Corey Day because he fell from 1st to 3rd in about the span of a lap or so. As the race wore on, the track started to change quite dramatically with more than 100-degree temperatures. And from the sounds of it, Justin Sanders was in the lead. We heard from him in his post-race interview. He was not expecting the track to change as much as it did, and that led to him missing the bottom coming off of turn number 2 in the rubber, and Corey Day would go back by him. Day had already gotten back by Brad Sweet for second, and then lap number 23, he would take the lead back away and get his payback and go by that Ridge & Sons Racing 87 off of turn number 2. Corey Day would conserve his tire just enough to score his 3rd Gold Cup in a row and tie Steve Kinzer as the only other driver to make that happen at California's Crown Jewel. And the win, as we mentioned, worth $100,071. So Corey Day in the last 2 years at Gold Cup, I believe he's taken down over 125 or 225 grand just in that race for the A main event. So congrats to Corey Day on his win over there at Silver Dollar Speedway. Then last night, it was Douglas County Dirt Track's return to the High Limit Racing schedule. 2 years in a row, we went to Roseburg, Oregon, in front of an absolutely jam-packed grandstand. 27 cars signed into the Douglas County Dirt Track. And, man, it was the only national sprint car race in the state of Oregon all year long, and you could tell just by the fan reaction and the fan turnout that they love their sprint car racing up there in the Beaver State. Tanner Thorson would get things started off with his first ever Capital Custom Trailer Quick Time, which was certainly a welcome sight to see, as we know that has been a struggle point for that team this year. So first ever Quick Time for Tanner Thorson. The heat races went to Max Mitri, Giovanni Selzi, and Oregon's Blaine Corey taking down the wins. Heat race number 2 was quite the chore, as we saw Camden Robustelli, Brenham Crouch, and Danny Sams all encounter problems with the turn 1 wall, which was eerily similar to last year's heat race at Douglas County. We saw several cars get upside down in that same exact corner last year. The FK Roddins Dash was won by Brent Marks, and he would lead the field to the green next to Justin Sanders in the A main. Sanders would take the early lead, but on lap number 7, Brent Marks would seize the lead back. A few laps later, though, Justin Sanders would suffer a flat right rear tire running in the 2nd position, and he would have to go to the work area. He would climb back to the 8th position by the time the checkered flag flew in this 35-lap main event. With Sanders out of the race, that moved Tanner Thorson up to 2nd, Giovanni Selzi up to 3rd, and Thorson would keep Marks very, very close through thick lap traffic, but he was unable to close the deal even on a restart where he was nearly in front of the 19 car going into turn 1, tried to throw a slider, but Brent Marks drove around the outside, and it just was not meant to be last night for the Rod Gross Motorsports number 88. Brent Marks would be, that would be his 3rd win of the year. It's his first win in 16 races and his first of his career on the West Coast. So certainly a very good win there for Brent Marks and that Murray Marks Racing 19 team. Tanner Thorson would get his 4th second place finish of the High Limit Racing season. Corey Day would run 3rd from 18th position. Giovanni Selzi was 4th, and Brad Sweet would round out the top 5 at the Douglas County Dirt Track for the showdown on the river. Now let's get into a race preview. This week it is the highest paying race in series history, $126,000 to win at the Skagit Speedway in Alger, Washington for the Skagit Nationals. Really looking forward to getting back up there to the Pacific Northwest, where it looks like it's going to be some pretty comfortable temperatures as opposed to Chico and as opposed to Douglas County. Over triple digits at Chico, 98 degrees I believe it was at Douglas County. So the teams, the drivers, and the High Limit Racing staff is looking forward to some cooler temperatures up there in northern Washington. Skagit will feature a unique format as well for this 3-day event with lock-in drivers from the prelim nights leading up to Saturday's finale. You can check out the format on Skagit Speedway's website. That Saturday finale, a High Limit Racing record of $126,000 to the winner, and a very, very good purse all the way throughout the field as well. Gotta love that from the folks over there at Skagit, paying down throughout the field very nicely. Of course, you know when you head up to that neck of the woods, there are several drivers to keep an eye on, but none more fierce than Trey Starks, who already has scored a win with High Limit at Skagit in his career. He got one last year as well as one at Grays Harbor Raceway. Starks already has a 6-figure payday to his credit this year at the racetrack, winning the Dirt Cup back in June as well. Other drivers you need to be aware of going into Skagit Speedway: Jason Solwald, Jesse Schlotfeld, Justin Youngquist, Robbie Price, Levi Klatt, Colton Heath. All of those competitors will be looking to keep the money in the state of Washington when Saturday night rolls around. And I tell you what, the Skagit locals are underrated. There is no question about that. Rico Abreu, he was the Skagit Nationals victor 1 year ago, and he looks to get things going back in the right direction after a little bit of a rough patch here during this West Coast swing. Coverage will begin on FloRacing at 6 p.m. Pacific time, or 6:15 p.m. Pacific time, 9:15 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday night. Tickets are still available online right now at highlimitracing.com. Make sure to get those tickets today. Who knows how many will be left by the time Saturday night rolls around over there at the Skagit Speedway. In the second segment of today's show, we know that this Skagit Nationals is going to be the biggest paying race of all time in High Limit Racing history, and all of the full-time drivers are looking forward to it. We talked to them back at Media Day earlier on this year to hear their thoughts on this big race, what it's like racing over at Skagit up in the Pacific Northwest in front of all those great race fans, and here's what they had to say.
Alger, Washington, are you ready to go racing?
Everything that Kevin Rudin's done to that track and how it races and just that part of the country and everything about it, I really like.
You know, to be kind of like a home race for the team, even though we're based out of Brownsburg, Indiana now. Rudine is still based out of Washington, so I think that's going to be the one I'm looking forward to the most. We're going to be driving up from California, so we're going to get the beautiful views of the Northern California area and going through the mountains and going by the lake and working your way up through Oregon and getting up into Washington. And it's just a kind of a completely different vibe. It's that West Coast vibe. Everyone's pretty laid back, pretty chill. You pull in and you get around Seattle. There's nothing, it seems like, through Oregon and everything and through most of Washington, and then you hit Seattle and it's there's just people everywhere and there's crazy traffic, and then right after that you show up at Skagit Speedway in the middle of the mountains and it seems like you're in the middle of nowhere, but a pristine racetrack facilities there and a lot of good fans.
It's just a really cool track up there. I grew up going to, then I started racing at it. The fans have supported that racetrack for years, and it's always exciting to go back to Skagit.
Driving through Evergreens, and here comes on the left side is Skagit, cut into a bunch of trees and a forest, and one of the highest paying races of the year.
3 and 4 for the final time. Abreu is going to cash in at the High Limit Room. It's a $102,626 payday.
Kevin Rudine, you can't say enough about this guy, bringing the life back to sprint car racing at Skagit Speedway, and I can see it in all your eyes, and it makes it a pleasure to put on a show in front of all you when we're out there on the track racing our asses off.
All right, now in the third segment of this week's show here on the High Limit Room, joined by Brian Walker and Tony Laporta. Interesting situation here as far as the recording goes. I am sitting outside of a coffee shop next to the casino. It's a little bit loud here, but there's no other place for me to go. Brian is in room 338, and Tony, looks like you're hanging out in a pretty nice-looking area down there out in the courtyard. How is it out there?
It is outside out here, so it is nice. Great resort, Seven Feathers Casino and Resort, awesome partner for the event, even better place to stay. Big fan.
Yeah, absolutely love this place since we've been here. Great air conditioner, as I mentioned on the broadcast last night. Brian, nxtbets.com/playhlr. That's the place to go to if you would like to wager on the races with High Limit. You can go on there and claim a sign-up bonus and check which sports books are available in your region. The prelim nights over at the Gold Cup did not have odds attached to them, so we only had odds for the finale. Corey Day got the win there, and then last night at Douglas County, it was Brent Marks getting the win. So what were the odds on those two guys when they went in? I think Corey Day was pretty low. It wasn't going to be a huge hit if he ended up winning. But what were the odds on those two?
So the odds of the Gold Cup prelims, which there were, Corey Day was about plus 300. Justin Sanders was surprisingly plus 1,000 when they opened for Friday night. And then come Saturday, Corey Day was still around plus 300 again when he won 71st Gold Cup. Last night, Brent Marks, you could have got the Pennsylvanian in Oregon for plus 2,000 or plus 1,900. So pretty good odds for him. First ever West Coast win. So I don't know how many people were betting on him, but it could have paid out pretty good. Much better than me on the blackjack tables last night. That's for sure.
I didn't know you went to the blackjack table after we left dinner last night, so that sucks to hear. But coming up this weekend, Skagit Speedway, of course, for the Skagit Nationals when it comes to nxtbets.com/playhlr. Couple guys to keep an eye on there. Trey Starks, of course, got a win there last year. Jason Solwald, Jesse Schlotfeld, Robbie Price, Colton Heath, just a couple of the names to keep an eye on if you would like to try and find an underdog that is good over there at the Skagit Speedway. Tony, let's circle back to the Gold Cup Thursday night prelim. Corey Day gets the win. Brad Sweet second. Brett Marks third. Dylan Bloomfield and Max Mitry round out the top five in that one. A complete repeat. I feel like a redo of last year's prelim between Corey Day and Brad Sweet, duking it out for that prelim night win, and Corey Day comes out on top once again.
I was very impressed by Brad Sweet, and I'll tell you why. There's been a lot of, I don't know, he, of course, wouldn't call it controversy. I don't know what you would call it. There's just been a lot of noise around that team this year, right? You start off with Eric Pretzman, the longtime crew chief on that program, stepping away at the beginning of the year to go over to the 9, staying within the organization, but moving to Casey Gain. Eric Pretzman never makes it to round 1 in Las Vegas. He and KKR split ways. Ty Wolfgang was always set to take over that top wrench position on the 49. And then they run into troubles less than a month ago at Knoxville Raceway. Ty and the entire 49 crew are moved over to the shop side of things. Ty steps away, and Brad's on another, yet a different iteration this season of his crew on that 49 car. And he even struggled at Gold Cup last year. He talked about that in Dirt Season 2, a year with High Limit. And he just talked about, man, maybe I'm spread too thin. Maybe I'm a promoter. Maybe I'm a series owner. Maybe I'm a driver, and maybe I'm not able to do all of it. And I thought he looked really, really good during Gold Cup. I know we all talked about it after Saturday night, and I'm sure you're going to get there, Chase. But, there was a point when Corey Day fell back to second and then fell back to third behind Brad that I think a lot of people were like, whoa, this could be a great chance for Brad. I can't remember. Maybe I'm messing that up. I can't remember if he actually fell back behind Brad or not. But it got very close. And so, yeah, I thought Brad looked great. I thought the 49 looked like how it's used to looking out there. And, yeah, I was very impressed, but nobody's got anything for Corey Day out there.
Yeah, he's obviously the guy to beat at Silver Dollar Speedway right now. Nice job by Brett Marks, though, as we mentioned. At the beginning of the year, he needed to work on the West Coast stuff, and Thursday night prelim, he was on the podium, was running top 5 in the finale, unfortunately blew a tire. And then, Brian, let's move over to the Friday night prelim. So Corey Day gets the win, 8th to 1st on Thursday. Justin Sanders goes from 7th to 1st on the Friday night prelim over Gio Scelzi. 11th starting Tanner Thorson, James McFadden, and Spencer Payson. What stood out to you in that Friday night prelim besides the racetrack being absolutely spectacular?
That was going to be my point until you had to go and throw it in my face. Yeah, it was the racetrack. How excited, I guess how good the race was. After when McFadden, Schlotfelt, and Spencer all kind of got together and had their incident, obviously Schlotfelt couldn't keep going. That's one thing. Even at the 360 race and Friday night, the 21S was really noticeably fast at Chico. That was impressive to see. Obviously, he fell out. McFadden, at one point right before that, it was like a 6-car battle at front. Cy Lynch was up there too. He was right in pack with Thorson, Scelzi, and Sanders when McFadden and Payson were leading. So really just how good the racing was. I think we've seen that a lot lately with the Gold Cup split field prelims, how exciting the racing is, and it delivered once again.
It really did. That McFadden and Schlotfeld battle was incredible until they got together in turn number 2. Tony, one other thing that stood out to me on the 2 prelim nights was the heat races. A lot of the times throughout the year with High Limit, the heat races, so-so. A lot of the times it's follow the leader. It felt like every single heat race, with that 6-car invert, was just incredible action all the way through. Lots of passing, lots of battles for the lead. I thought the heat races at both nights were really, really good.
Yeah, I liked the whole format for Gold Cup, right? I was a fan of it, mostly because there was no dash. I'm an anti-dash guy. I know that would mean there's a lot less time for the wheel, and I know that bums a lot of people out. But I liked the format. I liked what they did at the track, and I liked the racing in the heats. And Chico's just a lot of fun, and I'm grateful. I think about the first time I came out to the Gold Cup in 2022. Maybe the only year that I've ever been a part of the event that was hotter than this year. And, when we were all with the Outlaws, and, I just didn't really get it, and Chico's kind of hard. It's a little bit of a hard place to wrap your brain around, but I'll tell you what, one thing always remains the same. It can get tight down there into turn 1. I remember you and Tanner Holmes, Chase, talking a lot about that, you called out a tight situation. Tanner called out a tight situation down into turn 1. So yeah, Chico, Silver Dollar Speedway, super fun racetrack, and I don't claim to be a track prep expert, not even close, but whatever they do out there, it goes really, really well. Yeah, we got unlucky. Things didn't work out perfectly for the feature on Saturday night, but I felt like every time cars went out there most of the weekend, you were going to see some racing, and you were going to see the opportunity for some passing to take place. So they do a really good job out there at Silver Dollar, and it was fun. Every time cars went on track, you were treated to something entertaining, I think.
Yeah, you certainly were. So you mentioned Tanner Holmes there, had him and Dason Pursley up there in the booth on the 2 prelim nights. I thought they both did a fantastic job. It was a great addition to the show, and the Twitter world seemed to like it as well. So hopefully next year we can get a couple more guys up there in the booth as well for the Gold Cup Race of Champions. Now let's move over to Saturday night, the finale. Corey Day gets the win, his 3rd in a row at that race. Justin Sanders was 2nd, Brad Sweet 3rd. James McFadden fourth, and Tanner Carrick ends up in the top 5. Of course, Corey Day ties Steve Kinser for 3 in a row, the only other time that's happened in the 71-year history of the Gold Cup. But this time, Brian, it came a little bit tougher than the last 2 years. Justin Sanders actually briefly took the lead in that race.
This time wasn't as easy as the first 2 times, I'll say. I wouldn't say they're easy, but he led all 40 laps each time. I think he beat Sanders in 23, and then last year it was Rico. But yeah, more than anything, the track was so much different, obviously, right, with the rubber coming into play, but it still ended up being an entertaining race with what Sanders led, I think, 18 laps Saturday night. And Corey had to fight to get back by him and then hold on and survive. So it was he definitely had to earn that one, I think, maybe a little bit more than the others. But nonetheless, when you're 19 years old and tying a record that Steve Kinser holds, that's pretty insane. Something to be proud of for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Tony, I wanted you to kind of expand a little bit on Justin Sanders' second-place finish. That's his third second-place finish at the Gold Cup. This time, probably the closest he's ever been, leading several laps of the main event. And then Brad Sweet ends up in third. His 20th attempt at California's Crown Jewel just comes up a little bit short as well. 2 guys really, really hoping to get that big win. Unfortunately, obviously, Corey Day gets it done, but Sanders and Sweet so close yet again here at this race.
Yeah, and again, I'll start with Brad, and I stand by what I said earlier in the show, and that is that, whether all the crew changes affect him as much as some people might think, whether they're just rolling along, not missing a beat, I don't know. I'm not involved in the 49. I don't work for them, so I don't know what their day-to-day life is like. But Brad went 5th to 3rd in that race, and he went 5th to 3rd quick, right? Because if you guys remember, Corey drops back out of the lead, and then it's like a 3-car fight right there very, very early on. So, first off, Brad Sweet, and I asked him this in, on the front stretch after the race was over. They've struggled there. Brad talks about it. And I asked him, is this a sign that your California, your Chico package is getting back to where it needs to be? And he said, yeah, he thought that they were working really hard and they were going in the right direction. And then as far as Justin Sanders, I beat a dead horse on the broadcast when we talk about this stuff, Chase, but Justin Sanders is doing literally what Aaron Reitzel and RSR and Brian Ridge and Lisa Ridge brought him in to do, and that is keep that car near the front. Of course, Gold Cup didn't pay points. So whether he ran up front or not, that wouldn't have really mattered for their franchise situation and keeping Aaron in the fight for a high limit racing car owner championship and a good franchise position. But it's $100,071 to win. They want to be up front. They want to do well. And Justin Sanders talked about it in Victory Lane at Placerville. He has a different perspective than he did last year. Things are what they are to him. They aren't more important than they really are, and they aren't less important than they really are. He said it to Brian. I thought it was so cool what he said to Brian and after the checkers, after I think it was Placerville, maybe it was after one of the prelim nights. He just said, hey, there's going to be other 6-figure paydays in California, and there's going to be other 6-figure paydays in sprint car racing. And if I win this one on Saturday night, great. And if I don't, that's okay too. I'm going to come back and have another shot later. And I thought that was the kind of mental attitude that makes a guy deadly. Didn't work out for him Saturday night, but Justin Sanders is hitting on all cylinders, and I think it's got a lot to do with how he looks at the world compared to how he's looked at it in the past. He's burning clean. He's looking down the road at the right things, and it's paying off for him.
Yeah, it certainly is. He was fast last night at Douglas County as well, which we will now switch gears to talk about the one national touring sprint car race in the state of Oregon taking place last night. Brent Marsh getting the win, his first in 16 races with the series. It doesn't feel like 16. It feels like it was like a year ago to me that Brent Marsh last went to Victory Lane at Port Royal Speedway, got another one at Texas Motor Speedway, but he gets the job done at Douglas County, and he does it in relatively convincing fashion, Brian. It wasn't like he lucked into it or anything like that. We talked about how Brent Marsh needs to work on the West Coast swing package, and no doubt they have got it figured out. I mentioned it earlier on the podium on his prelim night at Gold Cup. 8th at Tulare, was in the top 5 at Gold Cup, blew a tire there, and now a win. It definitely seems like this 19 team has put a lot of emphasis on this West Coast swing, and it's paying off for him.
Yeah, I think slowly but surely this has been coming, right? Like Brent spent 3 years on the Outlaw Tour earlier, about 2017 to 2019. So he came out here a lot just then. He was out here last year with High Limit, and I think it was this spring, like, you really started to see the fruits of the change for that team. I don't know exactly what they changed as far as the car goes, or Brent definitely adapted his driving style, you can tell as well. But I mean, they came out to start the year with a top 10 in Vegas. They were on the podium at Kern. They top 5'd at Paris, more top 10s in Arizona. Come out here to start the summer, and he locks in at Gold Cup. Like, he was good on his prelim at Gold Cup, and then obviously, I mean, just lost a tire on Saturday night. Otherwise, he would have had a great finish. So whatever they've been working on, they're hitting it on the head. They're doing an incredible job salvaging something that, you know, they did not look forward to for a very long time. So it's refreshing to see them, you know, just put their heads down and work so hard to figure something out. And I think it'll go a long way in not only the championship chase, but maybe future championships as well. I mean, this is always an important part of the chase.
It certainly is. We have a pretty large schedule every year on the West Coast. Brent Marsh won it last night over Tanner Thorson and 18th starting Corey Day. So an interesting podium, no doubt about that, over at Roseburg. And the other thing I did want to mention about Douglas County before we wrap things up here, Tony, is the crowd. I mean, we talked about Placerville, how they are such a rowdy bunch. I would say Roseburg is trying to compete with Placerville as one of the more rowdy crowds we see every single year with High Limit.
Yeah, they're smart race fans, right? And I don't say that just because they came out in droves and they knew they should be at a High Limit event. They're smart because they pay attention to what's going on. I would have my back to them several times throughout the course of the night down in the infield, and then I would just hear this, you know, what you call a crowd pop. You just hear, wow, or a bunch of applause, and you turn around and it's somebody getting pushed back out of the work area. It's, you know, last year it happened with Zeb Wise when he got upside down. I need to go back and confirm this, but I swear Zeb wrecked in his heat race. It was kind of a longer red flag. They got him back to the work area. They were able to get that car fixed back up, and they got him back out on track for the same heat race before the field was lined back up, and the crowd went crazy. Now think about this. Yeah, the Skagit Speedway 26 is from this corner of the world up in the Northwest, but you got Zeb Wise, a kid from Angola, Indiana, and we're in Southern Oregon. Skagit's 6.5 hours away from here. You know, it's not like these are a bunch of Skagit, you know, rabid fans. These are just race fans that know that's crazy. That guy wrecked, his crew got him back out, and he's still going to make this heat race. And they pay attention. They get loud. They were in line to get their seats. I had friends come down from Portland, and they were amazed by it. They hadn't been to a sprint car race in 15 years. They commended Douglas County for the quality of the facility. They were fans of what High Limit is doing, and they liked the speed of the show, right? Everything moved very quickly, very smoothly. So, yeah, the crowd here, awesome. Big, giant, massive front stretch covered grandstand. When you look at it from down in Victory Lane where I'm at, it looks like every seat is filled and there's people milling about. Really, really well supported event out here. And it's super fun. They care about it. They love it and they support it. So I love coming out here. Very, very cool race.
And you know who else supported it, Brian, was social media. It seemed like a lot of people were very impressed with Douglas County, not only with the crowd, of course, but with the racing product that we saw on the track. I mean, cushion right up against the wall, nice bottom to hit, and the racing was just stellar, I thought, in the feature. You know, a little bit narrow in the heat race. We saw a couple of incidents, but the feature is what everybody comes to watch for, and I thought the main event was great, and social media was a buzz. That's what I love. We've mentioned it a couple times here on the show, is High Limit goes to some of these tracks that people have not seen before, maybe they haven't seen in a long time, and they get to show off what that track is capable of, and that was definitely the case last night at Douglas County.
Yeah, Roseburg definitely seems like it's becoming a bit of a staple on the West Coast swing, obviously, right? You know, you have Gold Cup and Skagit Nationals, the big ones, but this little stop in Oregon seems to be a fun one for the teams too. Obviously, like everyone kind of stayed at Seven Feathers, and it's I mean, the first night we were here, it was like, I think we counted like 10 or 11 of the 13 teams were all here hanging out, down at the casino, eating at the restaurants. So it's just a really cool vibe, this whole kind of two-day stretch we spend here in Oregon.
Yeah, I saw a lot of pictures on social media of the drone shots from high above Douglas County with the Umpqua River and the mountains and all the trees, and Those are the things, Tony, that make people want to come out and check out a racetrack. When they watch it on Flow, it makes them want to come out and see it in person.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the argument as we're getting deeper and deeper into the streaming age of these grassroots motorsports events that are as accessible now as massive, major league sporting events and major league racing events were 10, 15 years ago. I love the argument from promoters, from track owners, from passionate fans. Oh, streaming kills attendance. People just stay at home and sit on their couch and watch. But here's what they don't want to think about. They don't want to think about the fact that there's people watching those aerial drone shots and seeing this massive crowd and seeing shots of a packed pit area and the shots of people having fun and enjoying themselves. And from at home, they're going, wow, I need to be there. And then guess what? The following season or the next swing we make through whatever area it is that those shots are coming from, those people are there. I have bumped into countless amounts of race fans and even racers who go, man, we saw you guys here on Flow last year and we knew we had to come. We saw this race broadcast online. We saw the highlights. We saw people talking about the buzz on social media and we had to come. So, the streaming services like Flow Racing are not killing track attendance and are not killing, in-person support like some people want to think. In fact, it's doing the opposite. It's showing people where you should be and what you should be enjoying. And Douglas County Dirt Track is one of those venues in one of those parts of the country. I'm sitting out here right now looking at the side of a mountain, from the outdoor lobby of this casino and resort. And we are 10 minutes away from the racetrack, sitting on the edge of the Umpqua River, like you were talking about. This is a cool place to come be. Flow Racing showed that to people. And I think that's why you see massive, massive crowds, at Douglas County at all these West Coast racetracks, because Flow is showing people, look how cool this is. You should come and be a part of it.
Yeah, could not agree more. So, I think that's all we've got here on this episode of the High Limit Room. We do have a 6.5 or a 7-hour drive to get to. Recording this at 10 a.m. 8 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay, well, 8 hours, so just even worse. So we've got an 8-hour drive we got to get to. We're recording this at 9:30 in the morning on Tuesday. We've got to get up to Skagit Speedway for the highest paying race in series history for the Skagit Nationals. We've got a bowling tournament to get to as well. So we've got to get on the road here. Tony and Brian, thanks for jumping on, and we will talk to you guys again next Tuesday here on the High Limit Room.